today, the epicenter of the athletics world, the World Half Marathon Championships comes to South America, and these half marathon championships represent more than just a single day's racing for the hosts and organizers of this event. With the 2016 Olympic Games, Rio a candidate city for that. And this is very much an important piece of shop windowing for the Brazilians. And it's also a very important piece of shop windowing as well for African athletics generally. The Kenyans haven't won an individual medal or an individual title in this event for a few years now. They want one this time. And you can see some of the athletes lining up looking very nervous alongside the Japanese who look anything but nervous, it seems, next to them. And we're looking forward to a good day's racing. The women will have us off first of all. Yokiko Acaba there, the fastest woman in the world this year who is at this race. She's number 2 on the world sheet, but the woman who is the fastest in the world is not here. She is Kenyan. Habtemu from Ethiopia. You can see there a personal best of underneath 70 minutes. There's a dozen or so women who have got that mark underneath the 70 minutes for the half marathon. But you can see there the woman in orange, a former Kenyan, Lorna Kiplicat, the winner of this race for the last 2 years. And she is back to make it a hat-trick of titles. You can see there in the tight bun wearing the orange, former Kenyan, but now representing the Netherlands. You can see there the start in this magnificent arena, really, that is Rio de Janeiro. And my name is Angus Throde, I'm with Damien McCall, and we're certainly looking forward to the race today.
That's right, Angus. Welcome, everybody, to Rio de Janeiro. It's 8:45 in the morning here. Already 22 degrees as we get ready for the start here. We're about to set off. Fantastic moment, any sporting event, the start. And we'll be taking you in, as Angus said, a shop window for Rio de Janeiro. It's a beautiful city. It's only the second time this race has been run in Latin America, 15 years ago in Mexico, and now here at Rio de Janeiro, the beautiful, marvelous city, as Angus said. 21 kilometers and 97.5 meters along the beachfront, mainly, of this beautiful sandy city.
Yeah, very flat course. You can see there Lorna Kiplicat has already come to the front. She went out hard last time out. She had Mary Katani with her last year to push along that scintillating pace that led to the world record as it stands now. But,
smashed by 19 seconds.
Yeah, she certainly she took an awful lot off that record. She's certainly been dominating this event for the last couple of years. And she certainly looks as though she's setting out her stall again, gone straight to the front, and will try and push this along. She said before this race that she wasn't necessarily looking for the world record this time around. She just wanted to get the victory, but we'll see how she feels. 22 degrees, 78 degrees of humidity. It's a little bit higher, the humidity, than we were expecting. We're expecting around about 60. So we'll see how that has an effect, because the humidity really does take its toll on the distance runners. It's that really drains the energy out of you as you go along, but we'll certainly see how that pace comes in along this. Of course, Zesane Tadese will be also going for a hat-trick of titles later on. Of course, the championships reverting back to the World Half Marathon Championships this year, having been the World Road Running Championships for the last couple of years, but the IAAF, I guess, deciding that that didn't really work out with the change of name, so it's back to the Half Marathon Championships. I think that's a good move as well, but it's a bit clearer as to what exactly it is with that name rather than the Road Racing Championships. They had a 20-kilometer distance for the 2006 race, which is where Lorna Kiplicat took her first title. She'd taken a medal the year before, but in 2006 her reign began. Last year it was a half marathon distance, even though it stayed as the World Road Running Championships, and this year back to the full half marathon, and certainly the favourite here will be Lorna Kiplicat.
She said before the race also, Angus, she got here early, a week early. She's been targeting this particular race. Has a little bit of a disappointment from the Olympics perhaps to get over. She wants to win here badly for the Dutch. She said at the time the Dutch didn't really, after the Olympics, she said that the Dutch didn't really understand the track. But in fact, anyway, she was really a road racer rather than a track racer. So as you can see, there's a lead group starting to form already. A kilometre gone, and already a group of about 12 runners. Starting to break ahead. Of course, there's a little slope coming up. One small hill to go over the whole 21 kilometers, and I think they'll be on the slopes of that very shortly. Only 35 meters altitude. As you can see, we're right by the beach, and the rest of it is flat as a pancake.
Well, something of a surprise here that the Japanese we were talking about earlier, Yokiko Acaba, the fastest in the field in the race. Phyllis Ongori, by the way, is the world #1. She's the only woman to have gone underneath 68 minutes this year, but she's not representing Kenya in this event. But Acaba, I can't see her in that lead group, which is somewhat surprising, really, but they have gone off at a fair lick. And probably the women that we'll be looking out for amongst the Kenyans, Pamela Chepchumba, who is wearing a bib number 38. Well, you can see that from the backs. They've got their names on the front of the bibs, but the numbers are on the back. Chepchumba, who took a medal last year, and she kind of got dropped after the first 5 kilometers. But at the moment, you can see the Kenyan who is nearest to Kiplicat is actually Pernia Arusai. And she's at number 3 in the world list this year, 68.22. She's a woman on the improvement, though. She set that time this year in 2008. Primarily a road runner like Kiplicat herself, has won the 25-kilometer course at Berlin twice. So she's certainly well used to success on the tarmac, as you can see there, going past this magnificent coastline in Rio de Janeiro. The rocks going down to the Atlantic Ocean there. And interesting to see just what kind of a wind is hitting them as well in this early part of the race.
That's right, it's early Sunday morning, by the way. If you can't see people lining the roads, the nightlife in Rio de Janeiro goes on quite late. Half of the city will have gone to bed just a few hours ago. But a beautiful morning, and indeed a bit of a breeze coming off the bay. Still looking rather steamy and hazy this morning.
Yeah, there's not much of a wind, I don't think, out there to help them. The weather, 22 degrees, well, it's not too bad. It's a little bit hazy. It's very early in the morning, don't forget. Just coming up to around about 10 to 9 this morning. The men are back at the start line. They'll be gathering for the start of the men's race in around about 25 minutes time. You can see there Kiplicat certainly coming along very well indeed. She went through the first 5 kilometers last year in 15 minutes 38, and from there it got quicker on as the Kenyan took it on.
66 minutes 25 seconds, the winning time last year. Also went off at a fair lick.
Yeah, the fastest she's done this year actually is 68.52, so puts her 8th in the world this year, but really that's not to be trusted too much. And we'll see how she's feeling now, the world champion there wearing the orange. She also broke the 20-kilometer world record last year as well. And don't forget, there's a world record bonus for each of those, so it's not bad when you can break 2 world records in a single race. You see there the sun now beginning to come down. At the moment there's a couple of Ethiopians as well around. I think I can see Habtamu there. That's Sede Habtamu, 5th in the World Half Marathon Championships last year, where she ran 68.28. And it looks as though there's 3 Kenyans around. The team race obviously is going to be between the Kenyans and the Ethiopians. And at the moment it looks as though there's 3 of each in that group. So it's very, very, very tight at the moment.
I had the pleasure, Angus, of speaking to one of the Kenyan team coaches earlier in the year, who told me it was an absolute living nightmare choosing who would do what, because they had so many good top-rate athletes. Anyway, he said that basically they had to wait till an athlete had 4 or 5 really solid performances. Something like the Olympics, they would then do a one-day trial, and it was the first 3 or 4 past the post. So you can't get better than that. A meritocracy but a vast pool of talent for either of those two nations to pull from, most of them.
So you can see there, Lorna Kiplicat is leading at the moment. It's early stages of this race, but the Kenyans and the Ethiopians surrounding her. So Lorna Kiplicat, as you can see there, is taking along with her at the moment the Kenyan Penina Arusai. It was Mary Kataine of Kenya that she was dragging along last time, but at the moment it's another Kenyan, Arusai, who is with her just at the moment. Arusai, incidentally, was not initially selected for the Olympic Games this year. She was second in the Kenyan trials, but she was outside the Olympic qualifying time. But she then came to Europe, achieved a sub-31 clocking in a solo run in the Netherlands in July, and that provoked a change in the team. Grace Momyani was taken out of the Kenyan team, and Arusai was put into it. Unfortunately, though, for Arusai, she can only manage 18th in that 10,000 metres. That magnificent run by Tirunesh Dibaba that claimed that title on that very steamy, hazy night in the Chinese capital. And of course, Tirunesh Dibaba doesn't do the marathon yet, but like with Kenenisa Bekele, you more or less feel that with time, those two will probably step up. It was Tirunesh Dibaba and Kenenisa Bekele, both Ethiopian, and both took 2 gold medals at the Olympic Games, 5,000 and the 10,000 metre double. Some really quality running from the Ethiopians, and well, they'll be hoping that a couple of their athletes here, you can see them wearing the green tops and the red shorts, as opposed to the Kenyans wearing the green and red tops with the black shorts. And of course, the former Kenyan of Lorna Kiplicat, who's taller than all of them, who is wearing the all orange right down to her socks.
What do you think about that, Angus? People like Kiplicat becoming a Dutch person?
Well, there are two different schools of thought, isn't there? I've got no problem with Kiplicat becoming Dutch because she married her coach, who is Dutch, and became Dutch. So to me, that is a very legitimate reason for changing your nationality. Wilson Kipketur did it as well, became Danish well, 15 years ago now, from being Kenyan. More of a problem is the money version, the reason for leaving. So Qatar and those sort of places which have basically bought up the best of the Kenyan talent, or wherever they come from, and basically just put a Gulf State shirt on them. That's a bit more of a problem, but that's also a problem that the IAAF have seen as well and have taken steps to eradicate. But I've got no problem with changes of nationality per se, and so that's not so much a problem when it's for a reason like that. You know, I mean, Wilson Kipketur, for a start, had lived in Denmark for a long time. But I always think it's better. It's much more pride involved, I think, when you run for your mother country, if you like, or you're wearing the shirt that you've grown up in. And nevertheless, you have to say with Lorna Kiplicat, even though she has become Dutch, she's still enormously proud of her Kenyan heritage, and also has a lot of activity still in Kenya. A lot of investments. She trains in Kenya. She certainly hasn't run off to the other side of the world and completely forgotten about it.
We just saw the cameras pan out onto the beautiful hills here. It's perhaps surprising, in fact, that the people with the best view and the sea breeze are the people up on the hills. They're in the favelas. About a third of the population of this city actually live in those so-called shanty towns, those highly developed shanty towns, actually, the favelas, illegal constructions. 190 million people in Brazil. And apparently a third of them living in abject poverty. But anyway, the rich people living down by the coast, and a beautiful coastline it is. We're going to be running most of the rest of this race on the beachfront. We'll be coming up in a few kilometers' time to Ipanema and Leblon Beach. Leblon, one of the chicest neighborhoods in the whole of Rio. Look at that marvelous beach. My word, wouldn't you like to be down there, Angus?
Yeah, well, we'll have to commentate the race first, but Kiplicat is still bringing them along pretty well. They're just coming up to 4 kilometers at the moment, and looks like I just had a quick look behind her to see what was going on with all of the others that are in there.
A couple of athletes trying to join this lead pack at this breakneck speed. They've lost quite a few people already, and a few of the pretenders won't want to get lost this early. As you see, there's a trailer. Is that the Japanese girl?
No, I think it's one of the Romanians who was up with the pack at the beginning, but she thought she would be doing well to stay with them. The Africans, as expected, plus the adopted Dutch woman, have really strung them out already. And as they head down the beach now, which a lot of this race will be following, you can see that Kiplicat is taking no prisoners. She's certainly leading them along, and the Ethiopians and the Kenyans are certainly doing their best to stay with her.
Well, this beach here on Avenue Niemeyer, known for its beach volley, football matches, you name it. The Brazilians like to get down to the beach in numbers, spend the whole day there. Sunday, of course, today is a religious holiday in Rio. That's every Sunday of October is. But that won't stop the party goers getting down to the beach.
Yeah, look at that side. Well, this incidentally was when I say this, after this distance, about 4 kilometers, a couple of years ago, where Lorna Kiplicat won her first title, a certain Constantina Tumescu was leading 5 runners away in the 20k race there. Of course, the Romanian became the Olympic marathon champion just a few weeks ago. She's heading towards 40 years old, but that hasn't stopped her taking her first major title. And Paula Radcliffe, incidentally, this week was talking about the fact that she fully intends to go for 2012, using Tumescu Dita as an example of how you don't necessarily stop winning just because you get towards veteran age.
Well, she stopped winning at Beijing. It was a great disappointment for Paula Radcliffe. She'd fought so hard to get fit for China, in the marathon, that is. She had a terrible time at Athens, flopping. She would have been Britain's top athlete going out to Athens, Angus.
Yeah, to be fair though, she had a terrible year with injury and an illness, and I think she did terrifically well to even be fit for that race. So, and she certainly says that she doesn't regret going, in the same way that Lorna Kiplicat here says she didn't regret going in for the 10,000 metres, even though she was effectively a glorified pacemaker in that race for the Ethiopians. She said that she would have felt bad not having gone, and she certainly liked it. She's just guiding there. Yeah. I think Panina Arusai there, follow the blue line, she's saying, you know, don't drift me over towards the other side of the road. It's long enough as it is at this pace without not taking the shortest route.
Well, look at that fabulous, fabulous panorama.
Yes, it really is a wonderful sight. Nice weather as well.
Kiplicat, of course, set off at such a blistering pace in the 10,000 metres. She said she didn't feel that she had it in her to come in the top 3 unless she broke away in the early stages of the race, and that is why she had such an influence on that 10,000 metres. She didn't manage to get into the top 3 in the end. However, there you have the top 7 runners. Kiplicat, Chibumba Habtama, Gaetana Cease. 7th is Moraga, 8th Gelan, 9 Mengistu, 10 Telpos. So first 8, and then the start 16 seconds back to the 10th, and a good few seconds further back after that. If you can see in the lead group, we have 8 runners, 1 just behind. So 9 runners really in the lead group, and then a 16-second gap and a further 20 seconds gap back to the trailers.
Well, just having a quick look at the time as they went through 5K. It was 15:44, which is 6 seconds outside of the world record split that Kiplicat went through last year in Udine in Italy. So they're a little bit behind. It's still a cracking pace though, but it was in this second part of the race, between 5 and 10 kilometers, where Mary Kaitane really kicked away from the rest of the pack and really broke the pack in, well, I was going to say break it in 2, but she absolutely obliterated it, and only really Kiplicat was able to go with her on that pace. It wasn't a very even pace last year. The second part of it was certainly the fastest by quite some margin. You can see there, now they've actually strung out now into single file, so it looks as though the pace is beginning to hot up as well in this year's race.
So in last year's race, the second part was much faster than the first part. If we see that today, maybe we will. indeed get a new world record.
Well, they've got a little bit to catch up on. The pace gradually got slower after the 10K mark, so there is room to play with if they can create a slightly more even pace, which is why perhaps we're just a little bit slower over that first 5K. Maybe we'll see a more even pace, and that will bring us into world record contention a bit later in the race. Rusai, though, is still doing very well there. She's the nearest of the runners at the moment. And this race now brewing up nicely, and it looks as though Kiplicat is really now beginning to move it even further on and even faster.
Well, as you can see, there are people cycling along beside them. Gives you some idea of just how fast they're running, because they're outpacing the cyclists. With Japanese surfers there as well. These waters known for their surf, as well as their sunbathers. Risky surfing.
And you can see there as well that Kenya are leading Ethiopia in the team race. That didn't mean an awful lot going through 5K, but it's going to start to mean something now that you can see that Kiplicat has now broken up that group of around about 10 girls, and we're now down to 3 at the front with 3 behind. So we've got the Dutch woman, we've got a Rusai behind, an Ethiopian as well in this first group. But it looks as though Kiplicat is already laying down her intention to take this 3rd world title, and I wouldn't be surprised to see now if she breaks away in the next kilometre or so, because it looks so that even the 2 behind her now are beginning to struggle. You can see the way they're looking down at her heels, desperately trying to concentrate on just getting the rhythm together, forget everything else that's going on around them, and just try to hang on to those rather luminous yellow-orange socks of Lorna Kiplicat in front of her.
I have to say, Angus, that Kiplicat has a peculiar style of running, and if you look at her own face, she herself seems to be in pain when she runs. A lot of these long-distance runners do, historically, we've had a lot of them do seem to be in pain each time the heel hits the tarmac. Anyway, there'll be some pain out there today with a bit of heat and humidity and this blistering pace. We still can't quite catch that number in the with the reflection of the sun, which also says something about the sun here in Rio this morning. We're going to have a maximum temperature of around 26, 27 degrees around lunchtime, 22 degrees right now, so perfect conditions apart from a bit of humidity.
Never the most easy thing to run on the roads. It certainly doesn't. The body doesn't react well to running on tarmac, and you always have to be careful not to train too much on tarmac, otherwise it ends in shin splints, the lower parts of the legs. But at the moment, it doesn't seem to be getting in the way of Lorna Kiplicat, who's going along very nicely indeed.
And that gap is stretching slightly, Angus, just a few meters as the seconds tick by.
She's certainly she's taken them out very fast indeed, as you can see, and they're doing pretty well to hang on to the back of them. Rusai, well, she's certainly on the improvement this year. We said earlier with a 68.22 personal best this year, and she'll certainly be getting another personal best if they continue along at this pace for the whole of the race.
Well, 9:20 in the morning here in Rio. People starting to hit the beaches, the sporty types, at least. We'll be approaching Copacabana Beach later on. Ipanema coming up. World famous. As Angus was saying early, Rio is one of the candidates for the 2016 Olympics. 2012 will be in London. Not sure when they're going to decide that, quite how serious they are. But it's about time the Olympics went back to Latin America.
Well, the last Kenyan to win the women's title, as in representing Kenya, was the great Tegla Larupe back in 1999. And
what was her time back in 99? Do we have that?
68.48. So it was still pretty quick even then.
Crept up 2 minutes in a decade.
Great Kenyan won it 3 times in a row from 1997 to 1999. That's what Lorna Kiplicat is trying to replicate on this sunny morning. You see there the lead group. Then Kiplicat, Arusai.
Marja is the 3rd woman.
Years old, the Ethiopian. Personal best of 74.13 from 2006. This is her first half marathon this year. And at this rate, she's going to absolutely obliterate her personal best by something like 5 or 6 minutes. So it'll be very interesting to see if she can actually keep this going through the whole race. She has been on the Golden League circuit this year once. We saw her finishing 9th in the 5,000 meters in Berlin right at the start of the summer. Of course, Pamela Chepchumba went on to win the Golden League jackpot on her own in the end after Blanka Vlasic got it all wrong in the last of the Golden League meetings. Interesting thing I've been reading about Pamela Chepchumba since she picked up the Olympic title as well in August in Beijing. Apparently 7 men have claimed to be her father since then, and any number of people have been proposing marriage to her. It must have been a fairly interesting time for the 18-year-old. Well, and certainly fame has changed her life.
Well, there'll be a few more proposals of marriage since she got the $1 million from the Golden League. We're talking about Blanka Vlasic. What a dreadful season for her. She won absolutely everything apart from the Olympics and that 6th Golden League meeting.
Yeah, it was
absolutely everything else.
All went rather wrong for her towards the end. A huge winning run, as you see this magnificent stretch along the beach in Rio de Janeiro that we're enjoying.
There's the Sugarloaf, and that looks like Copacabana Beach. 4 kilometers. 4 kilometers of golden sands, white surf. Some say spoiled now by the high-rise buildings. But, I remember some years ago reading the chronicles of a poet who traveled to Rio de Janeiro many years ago, and he'd written a poem about 2 old geezers on the boat complaining how Rio wasn't quite what it used to be with the new buildings. That was going back 70 years ago.
Well, we're just 5 minutes away now from the start of the men's half marathon, and somewhere down there is Zesene Tadese of Eritrea. See, the temperature has risen now a degree to 23 degrees. The humidity is pretty much the same as it was for the start of the women's race. But Zesene Tadese, like Lorna Kiplicat, is getting ready to attack a hat-trick of World Road Running Championship titles. He won the 20K in 2006, the half marathon last year, and he goes again this time in. But the world record is being held by that man, the Olympic champion at the full marathon, Sami Wanjiro. He broke that twice in the last 12 months, but unfortunately he's not here to race in this championships. So there are the runners then getting ready to challenge here. Kenyan have a very strong squad of talent, 3 men who have gone underneath 60 minutes. There is the defending champion though, wearing the red of Eritrea. Didn't quite work out for him in the Olympic Games in the same way it didn't really work out for Lorna Kiplicat, but it certainly has worked out for him in the last couple of years in this race. The Kenyans, though, very strong, particularly that man, Patrick Macau Museoki, silver medalist last time out, the 3rd quickest runner in history, and certainly that will be giving Tadese something to think about. A very strong team in this. There are 8 men in total, by the way, who have gone underneath 60 minutes in this race. But the last time a Kenyan stood at the top step was Paul Karui back in 2004. Dariba Murker, 4th place last year in this race. I actually met him in Addis Ababa earlier in the year at the African Championships. Like with most of the Ethiopians, very quiet, unassuming. And Diodone Disi, now he's had a bit of a mixed run-in. The man from Rwanda says that he's been training in France since the Olympic Games. The coldness, though, that is in France at the moment apparently is hindering his build-up, he says, so don't expect too much from him. And Maral dos Santos, well, one of the few non-Africans who has a chance of doing something in this race. And the host nation will certainly be looking to him to do something very good indeed.
Well, Angus, just talking about Rakundu, he also said he did expect to do better this year than last year. So his training can't have been all negative.
Well, I hate to think he thought he was going to do worse than last year coming into a major championships, but let's hope that he does come up with something good for himself. And you can see there, just counting down, just a minute and a half away now from the start of this men's race.
Well, 4 Rwandans. We were talking about Qatar earlier. There's quite a few of the purple Qatari shirts hanging around.
Fastest in the world this year, though, is Haile Gebrselassie, but he's not here. It's probably not surprising he's not here, having just broken the full marathon world record for the 2nd year running in Berlin. Truly stupendous run from the Ethiopian legend, and well, if there was any doubt that he's the greatest distance runner in history, he certainly keeps coming back and reminding you, little nudges here to say that, you know, I'm still around. And he didn't do the marathon, Haile Gebrselassie, at the Olympic Games, which I must admit personally I think was a mistake, because the pollution didn't seem quite as bad as everybody was fearing in the build-up to the Beijing Games. But he did go in the 10,000 meters and became probably the highest quality rabbit that the Olympic Games has ever seen, that Kenenisa Bekele used to skill around the circuit and take the 10,000 meters Olympic title for the 2nd time.
Must bring great warmth to the hearts of Ethiopian track and field fans to see that.
So we're just about to go off then. You can see all of the hands on their stopwatches as they get ready for the start. Oh, nearly a full start in a half marathon. But they do get away, and it's a nice, clean start. And you can see there there's the Spanish, the Ethiopians. I can see some South Africans as well, Rwandans as well. The Brazilians going through there in the blue all together at the moment. And in the middle of that is Zersene Tadese, who will be certainly driving towards that hat-trick of titles, having won in 2006 and 2007. Of course, it's also the start for the fun runners, if you like, if you can call them that. They all come through as well, loads of Brazilians and probably from elsewhere in South America as well. And they've all got their own targets that they've set for themselves. In this city that is usually football mad. 4 teams are based in Rio de Janeiro.
Have you got a favourite, Angus?
Not really, no, not in, I must admit, Santos is probably my favourite team in Brazil, but they're not in Rio, so...
Yeah. I used to have a Brazilian girlfriend who chewed my ears off for several months about Botafogo, one of the others, Vasco da Gama, Fluminense and Flamengo. But hopefully we'll get a pan up of the city. We'll be able to see the legendary Maracanã Stadium. It had 200,000 spectators in it for the retirement of Pelé. Of course, they don't let 200,000 in there today, more like 100. But a fabulous, historic stadium in this absolutely football bonkers city. And why wouldn't they be football bonkers with the kind of players they come up with?
Yeah, the 4 teams, Flamengo, Botafogo, Fluminense and Vasco da Gama. But Vasco da Gama in awful trouble in the Brazilian league at the moment. They're plumb last at the moment, only just behind Fluminense, who are not doing too well either. Flamengo are actually the best at the moment. They're up in the top 5 with Botafogo in around about 9th or 10th place at the moment. But for the moment, for an hour and a half at least, Rio forgets about football and concentrates on another running sport, but the purest of them, pure running, the half marathon. And you can see there thousands of Brazilians and others running through the start line. It'll take quite a few minutes to run through. It certainly took about half an hour for them to all run through the marathon start in Berlin a week or so ago. And there's probably not quite as many for the half marathon in Rio, but certainly a good few thousand nonetheless.
Well, if Rio is to host the 2016 Olympics, there'll be a great deal of public works to be done. But Brazil is a country with a history of public works. Of course, they built their own capital out in the jungle, Brasilia, inviting the architects of the country to just design a city. And apparently a brilliant city, Brasilia. So they've got the know-how. They seem to have the money now. The economy of this country is stabilized. It's oil sufficient. They struck oil out in the Gulf. And of course the other big money earners are coffee, lest we forget, every morning, and wood. Slightly worrying to say that 20% of the Amazon rainforest has been cut down. But Brazil not as poor as it once was. Its economy is celebrated for being a boom-bust economy, has stabilized over the past decade. A lot of privatizations, and with left-wing President Lula, ex-unionist, at the helm of government, bringing a bit of wealth to the man on the street. So stable times in Brazil. So don't be surprised if they do get to this 2016 Games. It really would be a wonderful location after Sydney 2000.
Yeah, at Athens in 2004, and Beijing, of course, hosted the Games just a few weeks ago.
Well, I was comparing it to Sydney because these Latin American cities on the coast, it's a very long way to anywhere else in Brazil. It's a good 12 hours drive to the next major city. You really have to travel by plane. Sydney's a bit the same, bit like the old European city-states were a century ago. Transport not that easy from one place to the other. So Rio exists almost as a country in its own right. There you go.
It was a fair old journey to Beijing as well to get there as well. There's a fabulous city there as well, very much in the same way, not probably even more than Rio, to be honest with you. A booming city. Beijing really is quite something at the moment, with all of the new skyscrapers going up, business booming all over the place. Of course, they shut down business for a month or so before the Games. Quite incredible thought to think that the government can just say, right, all the factories close. Can't imagine that happening in Europe, but certainly to get rid of that pollution problem that they had, that's what they tried to do. And we can see there that all the men are pretty much together at the moment, although it's somebody going for a glory run at the moment off the front. It'll be interesting to see how serious that turns out to be as we go through this race. See the camera there in that truck just out in front, up on that arm. They'll be getting pictures from that as we go through this race. You can just see the scale of this coastline.
Magnificent. We were mentioning Beijing, Angus. I had the great pleasure of listening to you on many occasions as you were commentating. What was the highlights of the Beijing Games for you?
Well, even though we're at the half marathon world championships, you've still got to say that it was Usain Bolt really in the 100 meters. Everybody had been talking about Michael Phelps in the pool until that 100 meters final, and then in one foul race, suddenly all of the hype left the water cube and descended upon the bird's nest, and it really was quite unbelievable. I've never seen a world record beaten before by a man actually slowing down.
And just because it was so unexpected as well, it was incredible. Yeah, Usain Bolt. I also enjoyed the women's 4x400 meters, actually, to see Sanya Richards come back and overtake the Russian girl and win that on the line. Truly thrilling race.
Yes, it was some very good racing in the athletics in general, really, in Beijing. All of the hype surrounding the athletics certainly lived up. The only real disappointment, of course, was Tyson Gay and Asafa Powell not quite really putting together that huge confrontation that we were hoping for in the final of the 100 meters. But I think as well the runs by Tirunesh Dibaba and Kenenisa Bekele to take the doubles over 5,000 and 10,000 meters, as that really was quite phenomenal. Kenya might have got more medals than the Ethiopians in the Games, but the Ethiopians certainly came up with the headline performances in terms of that. As you can see here, Rwandan and Kenyan, who are out in front at the moment. And the Kenyans, well, they're the reigning champions in the team event. And they'll be hoping to, certainly at the very least, take that team title again. You can see there Murker, though, behind the Ethiopian with that very awkward style. But very early stages in this race at the moment. And you can see there Murker actually just put on a little spurt and has come up to join the Kenyan at the front. 25 years old now. The man from Ethiopia was 4th in the Olympic marathon. It's always the most frustrating place to be, just missing out on a medal, and I'm not quite sure what's happened there, but he's dropped back again.
It looks like Sylvain Rukundo at the back, but coming in with 2nd place as well. We were talking about him earlier.
Looks so...
4 Rwandan men in this race.
It looks like it might be Marugo there, Joseph Marugo of Kenya, who was the man who's out in front at the moment, that tall figure. And Murker has just dropped back just a little bit at the moment to be with his teammate Wandimo, I think that is there, or Dinkesa. But at the moment it's the Kenyan, Muregu, who's leading.
I think that's Diodone Dizi, in fact, the Rwandan.
Well, just behind the Kenyan, yeah.
That's
maybe.
right.
And we've just lost the sound a little bit there of the ocean washing in, but we're back to the women's, and it's just as we were saying at the beginning, that pace has really blown apart, and I think even Lorna Kiplicat is struggling to work out just how far she's managed to get ahead.
Where am I? She's been looking behind her all the way.
More pertinently, where are the others?
Yeah. Well, there she is, running into this tunnel. Just one tunnel in the entire course. So she's been running now for 40 minutes, 2/3 of the way through the course. She'll be up around the Lome Beach area, where this little underpass is. At the end of Copacabana Beach, we miss Copacabana. What a disappointment.
Oh, well, never mind, eh? That little bit of a respite from the sun. It's certainly getting warmer now. The sun is fully out, and the humidity is also rising as well, which could be a little bit of a problem for later on in the race. But Lorna Kiplicat, who was Holland's first world marathon champion in 2006, of course, repeated the trick last year. She arrived on Monday, determined to be fully acclimatised and well rested for this race. Wanted to give herself every chance of picking up her 3rd title. Of course, she won the World Cross Country Championships in 2007 as well last year in the real heat and humidity of Mombasa. So if any woman can deal with the heat and humidity, it's certainly Lorna Kiplicat, that's for sure, because it really was punishing on the beaches of Mombasa, where there were literally people being strewn all over the track, the circuit in the Kenyan beach town. And you can see there that in the men's race, they're still all together. Murugu has just been caught up and overtaken.
It is Disi, in fact. Diodone Disi.
Yep, DC, who's the top Rwandan. And it looks like he's the only Rwandan in that top bit. And well, there's another one there. You can see them flashing by. It looks though that Tadese, you can see there, Tadese's just behind there in around about 3rd place. He's got Murger right on his right, our left. Just Murger just taking a little sponge there at one of the drink stations. And very important to stay well hydrated, even if you're an East African in these conditions. Make sure that you try and keep the temperature. You can see them pouring water on their heads, just making sure that they don't overheat. Overheating is the big enemy when it comes to long distance racing. This is why it was so tough on them at the World Cross Country Championships last year. Probably some of the hardest conditions that they've ever had to deal with. See there, the police bike is actually, well, sounding his siren to get people out of the way, but actually looks like he's getting in the way himself.
Yeah. Well, the women were actually having a go as well at the motorbike, not the police bike, but the cameraman bike we saw just earlier. Anyway, 5 Qataris in that leading group as well. We've got the Sugarloaf there. and the city, the sprawl of the beachfront Copacabana area. We've got a helicopter shot. I'm not really sure what we're looking at. It seems like the main body of the group is about 2/3 of the way down Avenue Niemeyer. Niemeyer, the architect, built buildings all over the world, obviously, but obviously he was the chief architect for Brasilia.
Well, the other interesting thing, of course, this year as well is that they're not doing a loop. Last few years they've done circuits, sort of like a 5 or 6 kilometre loop, but this time it's point to point, which I must admit I prefer. It's much more interesting to go from one point to another rather than do the same circuit over and over again. I remember during the Olympics the poor old 50-kilometre boys who had to do a 2-kilometre loop, something like 48 or 20 times or so, which must have been soul-destroying.
Well, it was the same in the cycling, wasn't it? Circuit after circuit after circuit.
Now Tadese has come to the front for the first time in this race. You can see there he just spent the first few kilometres just tucked in behind the Kenyan, and now he has moved to the front as they come up toward the 5-kilometre point.
The 12 runners in the lead group.
And you see there 14 minutes and 4 seconds. So it's a reasonable pace without being spectacular. 13 minutes 40, just to put it into context, was the time that Sammy Wanjiro ran when setting his world record last year. So they're, well, a good 24 seconds outside of that.
It's fitting in with the laid-back atmosphere of this city. Rio de Janeiro. So it's about 9:30 in the morning. Tadesse, Merga, Meregu, Abdullah, Rashid, DC, Dinkesa, Tesfaye, Wendimu and Asif are all in the top 10. 3 other people, 2 others in fact, because the trail, one person just trailed off, and 12 in this leading group.
Yeah, we're yet to really see this race kick off yet. It's still very early stages. You can see the way they're all bunched up, that the pace is not really challenging them at the moment. Nobody's really kicked out, and there's at least, there's a good 15 runners there still all in contention for this race. But Zersine Tadese certainly will be the favourite to take it out, though. Man who has run 58.59 at his best last year. And so this is his first outing over the half marathon, incidentally, by the way, for Zersine Tadese this time around, after finishing 5th in that Olympic Games. That was his last outing, actually. He's been in training ever since then, getting ready for this event. And certainly at the moment, it's all looking very good for him. He picked up a bronze medal in the World Cross Country Championships earlier in the year, the man from Eritrea. Of course, Kenenisa Bekele came back from that disaster he had in Mombasa last year to claim victory this year in Edinburgh. And at the moment, the Ethiopian's being represented by Murger there, the furthest forward of the green shirts, you can see.
One of the things I'm happy to say today is that so the Qataris are third after the Kenyans and the Ethiopians. We said 4 of them now, I think, in that top 12. Yeah, just talking about security, Angus. There seems to be very lax, laid-back security. The people of Rio are riding alongside the runners on their bicycles and shouting encouragement. And very easygoing attitude towards security for this event by the looks of things.
Well, as long as they don't get in the way, I've got no problem with that. It's quite nice, really, to allow the public to get near to the runners, and the runners like it themselves as well, because the wave of encouragement certainly helps them to get past the pain barriers and keep them going. Certainly Haile Gebrselassie loves that about Berlin, the way that the German public get behind him when he's running through the streets, and it lifts him to greater things, of course. He went underneath 2:04 for the marathon, the first man ever to do that. 2 hours, 3 minutes, 59 seconds. Just about did it. He said he wanted to do it before the race, and he delivered on that promise on that German morning just a week or so ago. And this woman broke the world half marathon record in this event last year. Lorna Kiplicat running past well, what looks like to be, yeah, drink stations. There are a couple of drinks on those tables, not many though.
That's right. So she's got about 20 minutes to run, maybe a little less. One last rehydrate. She's certainly looking to be a little bit hot and sticky there. Anyway, she's got 20 minutes to run. So I doubt now that she'll pick up the pace to challenge her own world record. But she's certainly well on track for a second successful defense of a world title. World champion. How many people can say that?
Well, absolutely. Well, really turning herself into a legend of road running, certainly over the half marathon. And as you say, she's got this race in the bag now, providing that nothing untoward happens, and nothing should really happen. Of course, last year, she shattered Ilana Meyer's 8-year-old world record by 9 seconds in 66.25. I don't think she's going to get near that this time around. But nevertheless, she certainly didn't say she was going to attack the world record this time around. So I don't know about you, but that siren's beginning to get on my nerves.
That's right. Well, we're talking also about security before. Many of you will probably remember the 2004 Athens Games Marathon, where Wanderlei Lima, a Brazilian marathon runner, was actually leading the marathon with about 5 or 6 kilometers to go and was attacked by a protester, a mad Irish defrocked priest by the name of Cornelius Horan.
Yeah, he wasn't even a protester, was he? He was just looking for publicity. I know, I was shocking, that was. It was one of the saddest things I've seen, because he was, I mean, no one's saying that he would go on to win that race, but nevertheless, it certainly put pay to any chance that he did have. Yeah. He certainly had a couple of very high quality runners who were chasing him down at the time anyway, but nevertheless, he still managed to recover with the bronze, so at least he got a medal. But really, it makes you wonder about people sometimes when they're prepared to ruin other people's dreams just for a bit of self-glorification. But today, well, he's going for his own self-glorification, but in the best sense of the word at the moment. And the pace is now beginning to hot up now in this men's race. You can see there, they're beginning to trail out behind. And at the moment, it's Tadese who is leading that pace.
That's right. Of course, the men who overtook De Lima were Stefano Baldini, the eventual winner in 2004, and Mebrathram Keflezighi of the United States. But the Brazilian came third. He also got a special gold medal, Pierre de Coubertin.
Yes, the honorific medal, if you like,
a rare one
for showing good sportsmanship.
That's right.
And holding up the Olympic ideal.
But he himself maintains that he would have won the race.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, well, we'll see.
It certainly put pay to any chance he had of staying out in front, that's for sure. But at the moment, you can see here, the pace has really hotted up. Look at the way they're travelling along there. Tadese's really kicking in. And at the moment, behind him, it looks so the nearest man is Patrick Macau, who was the man who should have been chasing him. There he is, the Kenyan, taller of the two figures. Macau is the full name, Patrick Macau Museoki, half-marathon silver medalist, behind this man here on your screens at the moment, Zesane Tadese. So Macau out for some revenge. Macau, who's won the Berlin 25K twice. He said, I wanted to do anything in athletics that would help me out of poverty. Told that to the IAAF. Well, he's certainly doing himself an awful lot of favours with his athletics career. And if he can chase down Zesane Tadese, he's only 23 years old, by the way, Macau, so he's still got an awful lot ahead of him. But of course, such is the pool of talent in Kenya that there's no guarantee that any man who does well in one particular championship will even qualify for the team for the next championships. Not the case for Tadese, who pretty much everything he's won has been a first for Eritrea. So if Eritrea has ever won anything for the first time, it's this man who's done it. And he certainly is a massive star.
Tiny population, gold and oil-rich country, Eritrea. And
of course a port as well, which is why Ethiopia was so reluctant to give it independence. But now, apparently, from what I read, relations between Eritrea and Ethiopia are on the mend. And that's good news for everybody in the region.
Yeah, talking about independence, Brazil itself declared its independence in 1822 from Portugal, former Portuguese colony. So maybe they don't get the 2016 games, they might get the 2022 games on their bicentenary. You heard it here first.
I think Africa is a little far away from hosting an Olympic Games really at the moment, but nevertheless, the Ethiopia certainly hosted a very, very good African Championships earlier this year. It really was great pleasure to be in Addis Ababa in April, and it was a very successful championships, and it was pretty well run really in the end as well, and very, very friendly people. And I remember Haile Gebrselassie told me afterwards that now they're going to go for the World Championships after that. Well, Tadese has made that break, and he's just having a real look around there. That's one of the most pronounced look backs I think I've seen anybody do to see what's going on behind.
Well, he's
but
really
at the moment,
kicking off, huh?
He certainly is. And I really think that the police bikes are in the wrong place. They should really be out in front of the riders, not behind them like that, splitting them up. That's not very good for if nothing else. It actually creates the opportunity for the runners behind Zersene Tadese to actually slipstream the bike if they wanted to, which would give them something of an advantage.
Well, these are the kind of details that the Brazilians really need to nail, which is why perhaps they're allowed to stage these kind of important events in the lead up to an Olympics, if indeed they are successful in their candidature, to start ironing out the little details of organising major international tournaments. So I think if they do stage an Olympics, the mountain bikes alongside the runners will be gone, as will be the police siren. I was very impressed with the Chinese road races. The thing that impressed me the most at the Beijing Games was the showers, the roadside showers for the cyclists. They rode through showers to cool down. So Patrick Museoki of Kenya and Ahmed Abdullah of Qatar, two chasers.
Yeah, Abdullah there, he's also former Kenyan, by the way, you won't be surprised to hear. 61.46 he ran last year. This is his first outing over the half marathon distance this time around. He's been on the Golden League circuit a couple of times as well, where he's had a 4th and a 5th place finish. Was 8th in the final of the 10,000 metres behind Kenenisa Bekele in Beijing. And it looks as though he's trailing at the moment to this man who is the king of the half marathon at the moment, Zersene Tadese. And he has the lead at the moment. 59.15 is the fastest half marathon in the world this year. Haile Gebrselassie running that one with Sami Wanjiro, the second fastest, in 59.26. And Zersene Tadese has run faster than both of that when he won this event last year. 58.59 for Zersene Tadese. But interestingly, his personal best is actually slower than that of Patrick Macau, who's also in this race. So really, Macau ought to be using that, certainly, to put pressure on the man from Eritrea. Only Haile Gebrselassie and Wanjiro himself have gone faster than Macau ever. So he certainly has got the pedigree. And has he got the championship temperament, though, to really believe that he can beat this man when it comes to the crunch later on in the race?
Well, he had another gander behind him. He had a good long look to see how far back they were. He had to peer around the back of all these motorbikes, because he really has opened up a huge space now as he runs up alongside the world-famous Ipanema Beach, by the way. A hot spot of sports and two floss bikinis. We can't, I wish they'd pan out onto the beach a little bit.
I bet you do.
Yeah, but a great spot for the tourists and the locals. Ipanema Beach. Tadese powering along, as is the solo runner at the front of the women's race. Looking slightly less perky as she was at the beginning, Kiplicat. But she hasn't got far to go now, breathing heavily.
Well, interestingly, in this race, the only small doubt about Kiplicat coming into this race was a small knee problem that she had, which kept her out of last month's London 5K road race. But her coach and husband, Peter Langerhorst, said that he didn't want to take any risks. She wanted to concentrate on this race in Rio. She missed a couple of days of training, but as 5K is a pretty intense race on the road as well, especially pounding on the tarmac, she's a little bit afraid that the injury would get worse. Well, at the moment, it doesn't look as though she's being troubled by that, so hopefully it's just a question of her now running into the finish, and she will be on her way to winning this title for the 3rd year in a row. Lorna Kiplicat seemingly on her way to another gold.
Interestingly, on the that part that Kiplicat was running through, reclaimed from the sea, nearly 1 million square meters of leisure land. Of course, we panned out back onto the city now. It looks like we're going back towards the men's race as they slip past Ipanema. Panoramic view of Ipanema there. Very few people on the beach. It's about 9:40 in the morning here.
And it doesn't look as though Zersine today will take much interest in the beach either. At the heads through here then, with around about half of the distance completed. You can see there, current leader Zersine today of Eritrea, well in control of this race, and certainly took it easy over the first couple of kilometres, just tested out the conditions. And you can see now in the last kilometre or two has really put some distance. There must be now a couple of 100 metres now back to where Patrick Macau and Abdullah are running, the second and third runners. And I must admit that I'm a little bit disappointed with Macau if he's allowed that gap to come up quite so fast. There he is, Macau, Magyusu, running along with Simon Kibiwat and Ahmed Hassan Abdullah. And it looks as though these three will be fighting it out for the minor medals rather than for the gold medal itself.
I'd give it 100 metres back, Angus, actually. So it looked to me anyway. Yeah, here's this huge park. They actually levelled a hill and reclaimed land from the sea. It's only open during the day. It's all closed off at night. It's basically parks. There's a couple of museums and kids' activity things, but reclaimed 20 years ago from the sea. So extra leisure land for the Carioca, as the people from Rio de Janeiro are known. She's been running for an hour as Kiplicat. Not quite sure exactly where she is, but she seems to be just a couple of kilometres from the end. Yeah, 4 or 5.
In the last bit as well. You can see the pain is beginning to appear on her face now. She's obviously beginning to feel probably the heat and the humidity beginning to take their toll. She's had very good preparation nevertheless, and a lot of that was thanks to the Olympics that she ran. She used that 10,000 metres, funnily enough, as a bit of speed work for this event. So certainly she used it. I've never heard of the Olympic Games being used as preparation for something else, but an interesting little anecdote that coming from her. Of course, she's been training at her training centre in Iten in Kenya. This is her first race since the Olympic Games, and it looks as though everything she was planning has gone pretty much to plan, with the exception of that little injury. But it looks as though she and her coach have managed to manage that fairly successfully, and then she will have a few months maybe to really look after that injury going through the winter, before probably, I guess, taking on the World Cross Country Championships again next spring.
Powering ahead, lovely to watch. By the way, Angus, did you hear that anecdote before the Olympics or after the Olympics?
After the Olympics.
After, yeah. She wasn't saying that going into it. Either way, she'll be remembered for her part in establishing such a sizzling race.
And she also said she doesn't regret that sizzling pace either as she was going into that race, because she said she was never going to beat Tirunesh Dibaba in a burn-up at the end. So it was really the only course of action that was really open to her. And so she certainly says that she doesn't regret the tactics, and she was reasonably happy with the way that race went, even though it didn't really end up with a medal.
And as we were saying, she really is a road specialist rather than a track queen. Said she was disappointed by the reaction from the Dutch fans, who were hoping, obviously, that she would medal.
Well, of course, Holland doesn't have an awful lot of success in athletics like that.
No, they're hockey, cycling,
But that's athletics. They really, you know, Bram Som, I suppose, pole vaulter, who was a bit of a hope for them for a little while. Ellen van Langen, of course, probably their greatest athletics star, and probably Fanny Blankers-Cohen as well, of course, way back now. But really, Lorna Kiplicat was giving them their greatest hope. And nevertheless, she's still given her adopted country 2 gold medals at the World Half Marathon Championships and a gold medal at the World Cross Country Championships as well. And that Cross Country World Championship medal as well, probably one of the best, greatest runs I think I've ever seen in distance running, just for the fact of the way she managed to cope with the heat and the humidity of Mombasa. It really was an enormous performance from her last year. And another one coming in, of course, in the autumn last year in the World Road Running Championships, where she broke the world record for the half marathon, blew it out of the water, in fact. And this year, not quite perhaps in that sort of form, but also the conditions a little bit more punishing as well than they were in Italy last year. These conditions in Rio, of course, being in the southern hemisphere, that were the opposite end of the year to Italy in the northern hemisphere.
There's also the question of travel. Do you have to travel to Latin America? A lot of the athletes are based in Europe, so that definitely has an impact. Anyway.
Even more of a journey from her, bearing in mind she started probably in Kenya to get to this destination in Rio. As you can hear the crowd, we can't see them, they're on this side of the road, that's why you can't see them. Camera is looking at the opposite side, but she goes through 20k in 64.41, a 16.58. You can see there, very slow indeed. It's nearly a minute outside of what she did, pretty much is a minute outside of what she did for that world record last year. So this is really all about picking up the gold medal rather than fast times, but she's well on her way to that as she goes past what looks like another deserted drink station.
Well, a wonderful achievement by any standards to defend a world championship twice. Few of the people who've managed to do that. Kiplicat increasing in prowess. She runs through this beautiful park at the end of the Flamengo neighborhood, approaching the Chegada finish line in about 800 meters.
Yeah, she's certainly coming along. 34 years old now is Lorna Kiplicat, the defending champion. One of the greats. Picked up a number of victories through her career, but it's really the last couple of years that have seen her really come through and start to pick up titles with the cross-country and the road running as well. We saw, of course, in 2003 where she was 4th in the 10,000 meters at the World Championships in Paris, and followed that up with 5th in the 10,000 in 2004 in Athens. But it's really in this latter part of the year 2000s that we've really seen her come to the fore, and she's well on her way now to picking up a 3rd world title at these half marathon stroke road race world championships. And no one else, you see there's no one else even within eye shot of her in the back. She has absolutely
on her own
murdered everybody else in this race. She really has just absolutely run away from them, and there's nothing they could do about it.
Yeah, she's reached down into those orange socks and plucked out, despite what looks like a rather slow chrono, fabulous performance of grace and grit.
Well, I suppose this time last year she was on her own, but last year she was up in an enormous fight for the title that lasted all the way until the last few kilometres, with Mary Kaitani and Pamela Chepchumba really chasing her hard until the last 5k. This time, though, Chepchumba unfortunately doesn't seem to have been in that kind of form, and I haven't really seen an awful lot of her in this race, and a little bit disappointing for her. But really, Lorna Kiplicat in a class of her own, and running away with things very easily indeed. Wasn't expecting it to be quite this easy, I have to say, but she has certainly given another lesson in how to run distance. And here she comes. You can see the crowd are roaring her on. She hasn't got very much further to go now, but Lorna Kiplicat still going. I wouldn't say she's going hard. But certainly she's been struggling a bit. She's been given directions now by one of the locals to see where she's going, and she's just coming up to the finish now, and Lorna Kiplicat about to take the victory. So here she comes then, Lorna Kiplicat coming into the finish. You can see it there in the front of your screens. Lorna Kiplicat's won for the last 2 years, a world record last year, not quite that this time around, but it's still world title number 3 for Lorna Kiplicat, and the woman who used to represent Kenya has given the Netherlands another gold medal.
1 hour, 8 minutes, 36 seconds the time. Fabulous performance in the conditions, having travelled here. Gold medal for Lorna Kiplicat, number 3 in this World Champion Half Marathon event.
Yeah, terrific race, and you can see the race is on as well now for...
looks like Murger.
Yeah, for the silver and the bronze, and Murger at the moment is racing through at the moment for what looks like will be the silver medal.
We said she'd been way out of the rankings before this race. 23 years old. And she's got a job on her hands here if she's to hold off the challenger. Just a few hundred meters to run.
Well, she's been guided along as well, and you can see Chepchumba there is behind, chasing her along. But this is certainly going to be the best run ever for the 23-year-old from Ethiopia. Asalefetch Murgia running on towards what will now be a silver medal, and Chepchumba behind her is struggling, but looks though she will probably get the bronze as it comes across the line. Murgia gets it then for the silver medal for Ethiopia. Chepchumba comes in behind and takes the bronze in just outside of 70 minutes, and a good run there as well then from Murgia as she picks up her first championship medal.
Well, she crossed the line 1 minute and 20 seconds after the winner, so they weren't that far behind in the end.
You can see there Abobu Gelan, another very inexperienced runner, just 18 years old. She's so inexperienced. We've only really seen her at the World Cross Country Championships last year, where she was 13th in the junior race. See there, Panina Arusai, she's come across the line as well. She was well, considered maybe to be even the closest challenger. I certainly thought she would challenge Lorna Kiplicat a bit harder than she did in the end, but it has to make do with a minor placing.
So Aselfa Murger, the surprise package of this women's race. Well done to her. One for the future, 23 years old, maybe next time.
Well, the men's race is coming into the last third, and it's still Tadese who is leading for Eritrea out there in front. Thankfully now the police bikes are making a little less noise than they were, although I just say that, they start up again. You can see the gap that he's got on the others. Over a minute now on Museoki, Abdullah and Kibiwat, who are second, third and fourth. Tadese is really taking it out of them. That's a very, very fine gap that he's pulled out in this race from some very top quality opposition.
Well, it'll take some stopping now. If he's over a minute in the lead at the 2/3 of the way stage, it's about what Kiplicat had 1 minute 20 seconds on her nearest rival. So today's performance somewhat reflecting that of Kiplicat. The two hot favourites then proving to be worthy of their pre-race status. We're panning out across Rio again. That's Copacabana Beach in the distance. And the bay there. As we see the leaders just clipping off this headland. Rio absolutely littered with green spots, all the hills behind it. I dare say there would be no problem of pollution here should they land the Olympics. It'd be more a problem of crime. Of course, a city plagued by crime in the favelas.
Well, they're well outside the world record pace, you won't be surprised to hear, but Tadese still on his way to becoming the most decorated of athletes at the World Half Marathon Championships. And no one has won 3 titles in a row either. Paul Tergat won this crown twice in 1999 and then retained his title in 2000 before Haile Gebrselassie came through and won his only World Half Marathon Championship title in 2001. Fabiano Joseph as well. That was a very emotional victory for Tanzania 3 years ago, where he came through and took victory in 2005 in Edmonton in Canada. And we saw Lorna Kiplicat run in the women's race in Edmonton as well that race. Didn't win the title that year, but she took a medal. And of course has been dominant ever since. We've just seen her win a hat-trick of world titles at this championships.
Well, just looking at the times there, Angus, I would have thought that Tergat is not going to do this underneath the hour, judging by the time in the women's race. 2 minutes and 11 seconds slower than last year in the same race in Udinese.
Yeah, here again though, I think Tadese, much in the same way that Kiplicat just concentrated on winning the race. It looks as though Tadese is doing the same. You see there, minute 32 now. He's taken another 30 seconds or so out of the ones behind. They must be really struggling, the athletes behind, for him to be able to just reel away like that in that last 2 or 3 kilometers. That's a really astonishing gap. It was 1:05, they said, as they went through 15 kilometers. So, wow, it's a great run from Zersine Tadese. And it looks like Kenya are going to have to wait another year for an individual title at this championships.
Well, maybe Museoki, Abdullah and Kibiwat just thought, well, we'll let him go. He's going to win. We can't challenge him. So we'll save our energy for a 3-way tussle for the silver. So 45 minutes on the clock. 3/4 of the way home for Tadese. Crowds out on the streets applauding him as he passes.
Well, the figures that we were given for these races at Rio, 108 men from 42 countries in the elite part of the race. Doesn't count the fun runners, of course. 74 women from 34 countries. And when you consider they're mainly from Europe, there's just 17 men from 9 countries and 18 women from 10. It's just how much the domination is of Africa in these events. $50,000 were up for a world record if any were broken. None were broken this year, of course. Lorna Kiplicat picked up 2 of those last year for 20K and for the half marathon distance when she picked up her 2nd title 12 months ago. But you can actually win world record bonuses at 10, 15 and 20. So if you could break the world record in all 4, then that would be a nice tidy
couple of 100,000.
Yeah, plus
that's
of course
the sugar loaf. Sorry, Angus, just to interrupt you. I've been waiting for that. Copacabana Beach and the sugar loaf.
Yeah, it's the first time we've kind of seen it from that angle, really. It just shows you what a magnificent vista Rio de Janeiro has, and why it's become one of the most iconic views, really, of anything in South America.
Yeah, Acapulco, similar in Mexico. Similar sort of terrain, actually. Was there recently. Well, looks like one of the Qataris
Yes,
is breaking off.
Abdullah is breaking away then in a burst for personal glory, even if it's for a silver medal rather than for a
well, don't count him out,
gold
Angus, you
medal.
never know.
I'm sorry, I'm going to count him out. I don't think he's going to come back to win.
Well, I'll make you eat that hat of yours if he does. So,
he used to be Albert Chepkarui.
of Kenya.
Of Kenya, yep.
And
Officially
now
a
he
citizen
is.
of... now he is Ahmed Hassan Abdullah. He became Qatari on August the 9th, 2003. He's got a pretty good pedigree in distance running. He was third in the World Half Marathon Championships of 2004 and followed that up with another third place in the World Cross Country Championships, the long race, when the long race and the short race both existed in the World Cross Country Championships. That was in 2005. Of course, they got rid of the short race a couple of years ago now, just the long race left in the World Cross Country Championships. And he's on his way, it seems then, at the moment. Abdullah, 27 years old now, and possibly on his way to a silver medal, which would be his best performance. But the best performance in this race is coming from the man in front, Zesne Tadese. You can see there is Abdullah has been rejoined now by Patrick Macau Museoki. And obviously Museoki has decided that he's not prepared to let his former compatriot run away from him quite that easily.
Well, I don't know if you noticed it at home, but Tadese was just taking over one of the stragglers from the women's race. I hope it was one of the stragglers from the women's race and not a Brazilian jogger.
No, I'm sure that it was probably the case, but you can see here this could develop into a very tidy little battle now for the silver medal between Abdullah and Macau.
Well, there's the depth of the urban sprawl. You can see the aqueduct at the back that brought the water down to the city centre. Was built 2 centuries ago from the Carioca River to downtown. Plenty to see and do in Rio de Janeiro, should you wish to visit as a tourist. Tadese's not here as a tourist. He means business as he enters the park himself. On the other side of him will no doubt be the Copacabana beach. He's having another gander behind him. It's a long way back. I'm not sure he can actually see his closest rivals. They could perhaps do with one of those motorbikes like they have in the Tour de France. So it's 1 minute 35. The gap between you and the stragglers.
Well, a couple of years ago when he took his first World Half Marathon Championships, which incidentally was Eritrea's first world title in any major sport at the time as well. A marvellous occasion that was in Debrecen in Hungary. And also the time he set in 2006 as well was only a few seconds outside the then world record, which belonged to Haile Gebrselassie, which he'd set winning this title in 2001. So he was certainly near to setting the world record those days. Of course, now that world record has been taken on even further with Sami Wanjiro having broken it twice now. And of course, Sami Wanjiro still wasn't really a renowned name until this year, of course, when he won the Olympic title. And the Olympic title certainly took his name and his fame outside of just distance racing into the outer and the more general sporting world generally, with that amazing, fabulous run where the Kenyans ran as a unit for much of the race. And Luke Kibet, who won the world title last year in Osaka, was pretty much a glorified pacemaker for Martin Lell, who of course won the London Marathon yet again in the spring, and then picked up a medal behind Sami Wanjiro in Beijing in the Olympic Games. They used that London race pretty much as a dress rehearsal for the Olympics. So determined were they to win a gold medal in the Olympics, which bizarrely they'd never done before in the Olympics. And they've had a couple of world champions now in the World Championships, but the Olympic Games, they had a rather barren spell. And you can see here now they've been joined, Abdullah and Museoki.
And they're entering this this huge space, this urban space we were talking about earlier, the Parque do Flamengo. This is the Flamengo neighborhood. There's 1 million square meters reclaimed from the sea and a flattened hill. So it was landscaped by Burl Marx, who landscaped the entire city of Brasilia. There's a little bit of culture for you, Angus.
Well, thank you very much for that. Always like to have my cultural knowledge expanded. But back to the racing, and Kibiwat there is working his way back in as well, and also one of the Japanese, by the looks of it, is coming back into this as well. A very good run. I can't quite see who it is, but it might be Kahara or Nikau.
Well, he's looking fresh, I have to say.
Well, and if that is him, then that's a terrific piece of even pacemaking, I would imagine, by the Japanese. He looks pretty fresh. Nips across here for a bit of a drink. Well, the Kenyan-born athletes have gone straight past that without really even a look towards the drink station. They're through 18 kilometers then in 52:44. And, well, nearly towards the end now. Just 3 kilometers and 100 or so meters to go until the finish. And, well, what looked like was going to be just a two-man fight for those minor medals now looks like it's going to be a four-man fight. But we can say, though, that this is very much a one-man fight for the gold medal. And the only thing that Zersine Tadese is fighting against now is the fatigue in his legs and the time on the clock.
Yeah. One-man show. So he'd be an absolute national hero in Eritrea.
Well, I don't know, I wouldn't use the future tense. He is a national hero by quite some margin. He's certainly Eritrea's most famous export, really, Zersine Tadese. And he's still being tracked very closely by that rather large police bike just behind. Sort of the Brazilian version of Chips, I suppose, if you remember the American cop show from the 1980s.
I noted the Kegsa Bank is the sponsor today. We're just wondering if they'll still be the sponsor next year with all the current financial turbulence in the world of finance. Not much sympathy for the banks from the groundswell, but let's hope that settles itself down.
Well, today saying Kiplicat will certainly be laughing all the way to the bank after this race again, after picking up the titles again, providing today say does run all the way to the finish.
Well, they'd be putting it underneath the bed, Angus. I've taken all my money out of the bank and I sleep with gold coins underneath the bed. I sleep very well indeed.
Gold coins indeed, eh? Right, well, very nice.
Yeah. Don't trust the banks.
Well, his coach,
he's on
Geronimo Bravo, will be looking on to this performance with an immense amount of pride again. Coach of Zersine Tadese, seeing his protege quite clearly carry out a very deliberate racing plan and is executing it very well indeed. Tadese, as you can see now, racing into this last part of the race, the temperature is rising all the time. And so he'll probably be quite pleased that he's not actually in a race, as these four are for the minor medals, with Abdullah, Museoki, Kibiwot, and the Japanese there just behind in the sunglasses, just trailing very slightly. I wonder if he's going to come through. It was Nikau, I said earlier, and Nikau is the one who has come through and is challenging now for a medal. 24 years old is Yusai Nikau. He's got a 10,000 meter PB of just outside 28 minutes, which he set this year, so certainly he's on the improvement. But we haven't seen an awful lot of him, to be honest with you. He's not really raced outside of Japan. This is the first time that he's left the Japanese archipelago, if you like, to come down anywhere else in the world. He didn't go to the Olympic Games, but he certainly fought himself into a contention here for a medal. But at the moment, Zersine Tadese looks though he's just picked up a little bit. He'll probably appreciate going underneath the trees, which will give him just a little bit of respite from this sun, which is now beginning to blaze down. The temperature now rising very steadily indeed. The humidity also coming up, and you can see the effects that had on even Lorna Kiplicat as she came towards the end of that race in the women's race. As you look back over to the where the Sugarloaf is on the just outside your screen on the left, and we'll be looking down towards the finish very soon. 20 kilometers gone then, 56.45, and a very healthy 14 minutes 43 for that last 5 kilometers as well from Tadese. So he might have looked as though he was struggling, but he certainly picked things up quite considerably in that 5 kilometer split, and he's doing pretty well there. Of course, last year you have to compare that with the 14-minute dead virtually of Samuel Janiero when he broke the world record. He went through 20k in 55.31, which was an astonishing time. But today, say a little bit outside of that, but really it's not about world records as such today. It's about gold medals. And, well, Damien was saying he had a few gold coins under the bed.
Gold medal under
well,
his
this
bed.
one's going to have a gold medal under the bed fairly soon for the 3rd time. And today, say, really putting on a masterclass of road running in this race in Rio.
Well, we had a bit of a surprise package in the women's race with Murger coming second. Perhaps the Japanese Yusei Nakao is going to be the surprise package, because his personal best before today was 1 hour 2 minutes for the half marathon. He may approach that again today.
He could well approach that today, yeah, if he keeps on the same pace that he's going at the moment. And maybe the Japanese Nikao will make up for Acaba's rather disappointing run in the women's race. So she didn't really figure at all, having come in as the fastest in the field this year. But today, say, he's well on his way to picking up the victory here, and this will be his first half marathon of the year. Today, say, has been through cross country, picked up that bronze, of course, in Edinburgh earlier in the year. He won the Bangalore 10-kilometre race after that, followed up with second in the 10K in London, and then on the track in Zaragoza in Spain, he was 3rd in the 3,000 metres. And then the only other race in a very conservative year's racing, really, from today, say, he picked up 5th.
Well, it looks like the Japanese has been dropped from that second group, the ones chasing for silver and bronze. So it's back down to Museoki, Abdullah and Kibiwat. Today's he looking behind him again as he reaches the blue line. So he's approaching, looks like he's going to miss the hour, but here we are coming up to the finish line.
Well, he's coming up now. I think he will get inside the hour, actually. Look at the smile all over his face there, and get out the way, that camera, so we can see him. That's better. He's still looking behind him as if he expects to be ambushed at some point, but trust me, he's not going to get ambushed. It's all his for the 3rd year running. Zesine today says he's going to come across the line to win the gold medal for Eritrea. More glory. Eritrea's first world title 2 years ago in 2006, and now just 2 years later he has won it for the 3rd year running, 2006, 2007 and now 2008. Brilliant running from Zesine today, saying a real piece of performance running over distance from the man. It looks as though the Macau has now broken away from Abdullah, and this is really his statement of intent to take the silver medal, and Abdullah is going to have to fight off the other Kenyan, Kibiwat, for the bronze medal. But it looks as though he's getting the march on the second Kenyan as well. Kenya, though, at the moment look as though they might well win the team title again. You can see 2 Kenyans, as you can see there. There were a few more Kenyans just behind. It's interesting to see where the other Ethiopians are, but I think with 2 men in the first 4, that will probably be enough for Kenya to pick up the team medal again. It's interesting to see where the 3rd of the Kenyans are to complete the scoring. Well, Macau, like today, say, now becoming rather paranoid and obsessed with checking behind him to see who's there. But at the moment, it looks as though the man who we expected to push this man, Zesine Tadese, to the line, hasn't quite managed it. New championship record, though, for Zesine Tadese with that time. So terrific running, and he's now enjoying the post-race interviews where he can tell everybody about how he won it.
Well, he was just 55 seconds slower than last year, so very good time indeed. And this fella here, coming up for the silver medal, has got an even better personal best than Tade. 58.56 for Museoki. He's going to be about a minute and a half slower today, maybe 2. So he storms through the line at 1:01.53.
Abdullah takes the bronze medal, and Kibiwat comes across right behind him for the 4th medal. But you see there, you can see the effort all over the face as Abdullah comes up to congratulate him. It was a nice little tussle in that last kilometre or so between these 2 athletes. And in the end, Ahmed Hassan Abdullah having to settle for the bronze medal in 61 minutes 57.
Well, Tadesse really burned off his rivals there, almost 2 minutes faster than his closest rival. A truly magnificent performance from him here in the heat at Rio de Janeiro. Wonderful, wonderful performance in this picturesque city. Well, that's about it from us today. There's obviously another 80 or so of the men to come home.
And then, of course, all the thousands of the fun runners who are still pounding their way around the streets as the weather gets hotter and hotter. You can see the way we started off in slightly hazy. It looks like Dos Santos is now coming across the line as well, the first of the Brazilians. And that's something for the home fans to cheer. And you can see the way he's carrying the flag. He's pretty pleased with that performance, despite the fact that he's well outside the medals. But a proud moment, really, to finish the World Half Marathon Championships taking place in your home country of Brazil.
Yeah. 1 hour, 4 minutes. By no means a shame.
He was 7th last year with a personal best of 59.33, but you can see even he couldn't deal with the really tough conditions that this race has developed into. A little bit the same as how the race in Beijing happened, and also the race in Osaka, where it started off pretty warm and then just got hot and humid all the way through the race. But you can see their confirmation of Tadesse's victory then.
We mentioned the Rwandan earlier, Disi Dieudonné finished 6th in the end, 3 minutes and 7 seconds behind the Rwandan. Dos Santos was 8th. 7th last year, 8th this year. Wow. I'm wondering how many of these karaoke, the guys doing it for fun, will be stopping off along the beaches. It's a fabulous day here in Rio de Janeiro. So just to recap, going back over the women's race, obviously was
Lorna Kiplicat, of course, taking a title for the 3rd year running. And that was a terrific run from her. And we're just waiting to see, incidentally, when the team figures come up. And of course, they have to wait a little bit before all 3 of each team have come over the line. But I would imagine we'll be able to get the top 3 fairly soon. And you can see here this magnificent sight over Rio de Janeiro. It's been a great day, actually, for Brazil, and certainly put themselves in the shop window ahead of their bid for the 2016 Olympic Games, which, of course, they were very, very keen to host. Beijing, of course, set the standard somewhat, but maybe we won't see the same kind of money being spent on the Olympic Games in future. Over 43 billion was spent on the Beijing Games, and that's if you believe the estimates. May think it's even more conservative.
Possibly.
But nevertheless, it's been a terrific day here, and hat-trick of titles for both Zersinay Tadesse and Lorna Kiplicat. It's been a terrific day's entertainment, Damien.
Fabulous, yeah. Well, goodbye to everybody. It's been a great day here in Rio. Thank you.
Yeah, indeed. Join us next year on CFI when we'll be bringing you a whole lot more athletics as well. But for now, bye.